Welcome to Vold Revolution channel. Today we present a book summary of How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People by LesGiblin. Have you ever felt, a bit insecure when you're talking to people? Imagine how easily you could transform yourself to be more charismatic, more influential, and just more successful in life. LesGiblin's book, How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People, is really the key to making that happen. And today we're going to summarize it all so you can put it to use right away. Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into a stack of really tested methods from LesGiblin's classic guide.
And it really is a classic. It's from the 1950s, but the principles are timeless.
Absolutely. And we're going to forget all the motivational fluff, that quick fix theories. Giblin's mission, and ours today, is to extract the practical knowledge.
Yeah, the really actionable stuff. He wanted to understand human nature as it is, not as theorists say it ought to be.
That's the perfect way to put it. It's about reality, not wishful thinking. So what's the core idea here?
Well, he immediately strips away what he calls the Pollyanna theories.
The idea that if you're just nice, everything will magically work out.
Exactly. He says that's naive. His entire framework for successful human relations, for getting what you want, rests on this concept he calls the fair exchange principle.
The fair exchange principle. So what does that mean exactly?
It's actually very simple, but it's incredibly powerful. If you want something, cooperation from a colleague, a sale from a client, even just goodwill or respect from a friend, you have to secure it by giving the other person something they want in return.
So success is transactional. It's an exchange.
It's a fair exchange. And this idea, it immediately separates the truly successful people from the ones who are just manipulative, or on the other side, the ones who are too timid.
Giblin talks about 3 ways people deal with others, right? But we're really only interested in one of them.
That's right. The first method is, it's taking what you want by force. Intimidation, threats, it's the tyrant, the bully, or even the subtle corporate coercer.
The person who makes you feel like you have no choice.
Exactly. The second is the complete opposite. He calls it the human relations beggar. The person who submits, who grovels, who hopes someone will take pity on them.
And neither of those approaches gives you genuine confidence or any kind of lasting power.
Not at all. In fact, they destroy it. So we focus entirely on that third method, operating on a basis of give and take, the fair exchange.
And the most interesting part, I think, is that Giblin says you already have all the currency you need for this exchange.
You do. He calls them your hidden assets. These are things that you have in abundance, things like recognition, approval, making someone feel important, but which other people are profoundly, deeply hungry for.
So the secret is learning how to spend these assets.
Spend them freely. Once you do that, the success and cooperation you want, they're returned to you almost automatically. It's cause and effect.
That sets the stage beautifully. Let's jump into the foundation then. Part 1, Chapter 1 is called Your Key to Success and Happiness. And Giblin just lays it on the line. He says all success and happiness hinge on mastering one big factor.
Other people.
Just that. Other people.
It's a pretty radical thesis, especially for the time he was writing this. When technical skill and industrial might were seen as the absolute peak of achievement.
Right. The brilliant engineer, the master craftsman.
And Giblin argues that, yes, technical skill is a baseline requirement. You need to be competent. But your ability to relate to other human beings, that's the ultimate multiplier.
And he has numbers to back this up that are, honestly, they're genuinely startling.
They really are. The Carnegie Institute of Technology did this huge analysis records of 10,000 individuals. And what they found is that only 15% of success is due to technical skill.
Only 15?
15%. That includes brains, academic training, all the hard skills. The other 85%, that massive chunk, is attributable to personality factors and the ability to deal with people successfully.
85%. Think about that ratio for a minute, especially if you, listening right now, are focused on mastering a difficult technical field coding, engineering, finance.
You might believe that the person who knows the most wins. Giblin just says flat out no.
No.
The person who knows the most and can effectively transmit that knowledge, coordinate with a team, and motivate other people. That's the person who wins.
It's the difference between being a brilliant solo violinist and being a truly effective conductor of an entire orchestra.
Perfect analogy.
Yeah.
And it all speaks to the nature of modern work. As our economy gets more and more specialized, we have to rely on each other more heavily.
The Davy Crockett world of the rugged individualist is gone.
It's long gone. If you're a brilliant engineer who can't explain your design to the manufacturing team, Or if you constantly alienate your clients, that technical brilliance, that 15%, it's stuck in a silo. It's useless.
And the failure rates, they just confirm this imbalance, don't they?
Over and over. Studies from Harvard, from Dr. Albert Edward Wiggum,
Yeah.
they all confirm the same pattern. Up to 90% of job losses resulted from a failure to successfully deal with people.
90%. So it wasn't that they couldn't do the work.
No, it was conflict, an inability to cooperate, a bad attitude, not a failure to perform the technical job itself. Giblin even uses a Purdue University study of engineering graduates to just hammer this home.
What did that one find?
They looked at the difference in earnings between the highest academic performers and the lowest. And the difference was negligible, barely $200 a year.
So being the top of your class technically didn't really matter to your paycheck.
Not much at all.
Yeah.
But then they looked at the engineers, who showed a marked ability to deal with others in social situations.
Yeah.
They averaged 15% more than the quote-unquote smart group, and a shocking 33% more than those with low personality ratings.
The market rewards human engineering skills dramatically.
Which forces us to kind of redefine what success even is.
How so?
Giblin says true success isn't just getting along. He gives the example of the timid Caspar milquetoast, who gets along by letting everyone walk all over him.
That destroys his self-respect. That's not success.
Of course not. And on the other end, the tyrannical dictator gets along by crushing all opposition. But that just creates enemies and resentment.
Also not success.
So true. Lasting success. It involves dealing with people in a way that keeps both your ego and their ego completely intact. If you leave an interaction feeling like you won, but the other person feels trampled on,
You've lost in the long run.
you've secured a short-term gain, maybe, but you've guaranteed long-term resistance.
Okay, so if mutual ego preservation is the goal, we have to understand the power of that ego. And that brings us to Chapter 2. How to use the basic secret for influencing others.
This is where he defines the most powerful drive in any person. And it's the need to maintain their unique individuality and defend their ego.
He calls it the atomic energy of human relations.
It really is. And he illustrates it with this. I mean, it's an unforgettable, really shocking anecdote. The man who strangled a woman.
Just because she fell asleep while he was talking to her.
Right. It's an extreme example, obviously, but it perfectly illustrates the point. He wasn't threatened physically. He wasn't threatened financially.
His deepest sense of dignity, his ego, was violated. The message he received was, "You are so insignificant, so boring, that I literally cannot stay awake while you speak."
And that's the core lesson. You can often injure a person physically or financially and survive the aftermath. But the one unforgivable sin in human relations is trampling on another person's ego.
You diminish their dignity, you invite hostility.
Deep resentment, future sabotage, you just can't do it.
So we have to accept the reality of what he calls the universal egotist. He gives us 4 facts about this that we have to deal with every single day.
Fact 1, we all believe we have innate worth and dignity. We just do.
That's a given.
2, we're fundamentally more interested in ourselves than in anything else in the entire world. And he says that's natural, it's not selfish, it's just how we're wired.
3, everyone wants to feel important. We all want to amount to something.
And 4, which is maybe the most critical one for actually applying this stuff, everyone craves approval from other people so that they can ultimately approve of themselves.
So our internal self-worth is basically a reflection of external validation.
To a huge degree, yes. And this is where Giblin provides a major psychological twist. We often assume that a self-centered or conceited person has too much ego.
Right, that they're arrogant.
But he argues the exact opposite. The source of all that trouble is actually low self-esteem.
This is the key to managing difficult people, isn't it?
It changes everything. He has this great line, "A starved ego is a mean ego." When someone is constantly critical or intolerant or always trying to diminish other people, they are suffering from deep, deep insecurity.
They're ornery because they're emotionally starving.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And he gives us this little mnemonic, LSMFT. Low self-esteem means friction and trouble.
So how does understanding this change how we deal with a difficult person in, a practical sense?
Well, think about it. If you approach a braggart or a bully, the kind of person who's always trying to put you in your place, as someone who's suffering from low self-esteem,
You realize they're not attacking from a position of strength?
they're attacking preemptively. They're terrified that you're going to destroy their already fragile sense of worth first. They can't afford an equal exchange because they feel like they have nothing.
So their defensiveness, their aggression, it vanishes the moment you restore their sense of worth.
It does. Which means trying to beat them down or show them up is the most counterproductive thing you can possibly do.
Because it just confirms their deepest fears and guarantees they'll be your enemy for life.
Exactly. And conversely, people with high self-esteem, they're secure, they're easy to deal with, they're tolerant, they can absorb mistakes or a little bit of criticism because it only makes a small dent in their overall sense of security.
The truly confident person is the one who's easy to get along with.
Without a doubt. So given this universal hunger, the practical application is what he calls the ego appeal.
The ego appeal.
When logic, when reason, when technical merit, when all of that fails to get people to act, you have to pivot. You have to give the other person a personal reason to help you, a reason that will enhance their ego.
The story of General Oglethorpe founding the colony of Georgia is the perfect example of this.
It's the gold standard. He spent weeks appealing to the logical side of King George. Humanitarian concerns, benefits for the crown, economics.
And he got nothing. Failure. The king just couldn't be bothered.
But the absolute moment Oglethorpe stopped using external logic and appealed directly to the king's self-importance.
By suggesting the colony be named Georgia,
the king didn't just say yes. He became the venture's most enthusiastic champion. He financed it, he populated it. The king's personal reason, his legacy, his name immortalized, it trumped every logical argument in the world.
And Giblin tells a more modern story about getting a hotel room during a packed convention. He didn't use logic.
No, he abandoned the logical plea of, I need this room, I'm desperate. Instead, he appealed to the desk clerk's professional pride.
What did he say?
He told the clerk something like, I know that if there's any hotel man in this town who can lick this impossible situation, it's you.
Wow.
And the clerk immediately stopped seeing Giblin as a problem, as another annoyance, and started seeing him as a challenge, a chance to prove his immense professional capacity.
And he found him a room.
He went out of his way to find a room. That simple pivot from demanding help to recognizing and praising competence, that is the essence of the ego appeal.
So if the ego is the universal hunger and we need to feed it, Chapter 3 is the how-to. It's called How to Cash In on Your Hidden Assets.
And this is where Giblin says you are already a millionaire in human relations. You already possess the food that everyone is starving for, that feeling of importance, of appreciation, of being noticed.
And this kind of wealth, it doesn't diminish the more you give it away.
It actually multiplies. The goal is to give this recognition away freely, and in return you secure success and cooperation. It's the ultimate fair exchange, and it costs you nothing materially.
But this recognition has to be constant, doesn't it? Because our feelings about ourselves are, like we said, reflections of how others seem to feel about us. We need that daily validation.
Absolutely. We rely on other people to confirm our personal worth. This is why Giblin puts so much emphasis on what he calls the tremendous trifles.
Tremendous trifles? What are those?
They're the small courtesies, being punctual, making eye contact, noticing a new haircut or a change in someone's office decor. They're not important in terms of time or the task at hand.
But they communicate profound recognition of the other person's value.
Exactly. And conversely, it's the repeated small offenses that destroy goodwill over time. Ignoring your partner when they speak, habitually being 5 minutes late, cutting someone off mid-sentence.
These actions are also tremendous trifles, but they depreciate the other person. Being late, for instance, sends a very clear, implicit signal.
It says, I do not place much value on seeing you or on your time. The slight itself is small, but if you repeat it day after day, it accumulates into this massive debt of ill will that no big grand gesture can easily repay.
So we need active steps to demonstrate importance. Giblin gives us 3 key rules for cashing in on these hidden assets. Number 1 is, remind yourself they are important.
This is the internal work. It's the foundation. If your attitude is one of genuine respect, it translates externally. You can't fake respect, not effectively. You have to genuinely believe that the person you're dealing with, from the CEO down to the janitor, is a person of inherent dignity and value.
And rule 2 is the visible one. Notice other people, and this is more than just looking at them, it's really seeing them.
We all know subconsciously that we only notice things that are important to us. So when someone else notices us, our work, our efforts, a small change we made, it's a profound compliment. It boosts morale and encourages cooperation.
He talks about the Harwood Manufacturing Corporation during World War II.
A great example. They had this huge labor turnover problem. They nearly eliminated it, not with more pay, but by implementing a program focused solely on individual attention for new employees.
So they gave them personnel interviews, explained how their specific job fit into the bigger picture.
They assigned them counselors. The problem wasn't the pay or how hard the work was. The problem was anonymity. The program validated their personal worth. It said, you are not just a number on an assembly line. You are important to this effort.
Giblin even says that a lot of children's naughtiness is just a desperate cry for notice.
It is. If they can't get positive attention, they'll absolutely settle for negative attention, because not being noticed at all is the ultimate psychological annihilation.
Okay, so rule 3 is the one that really challenges our own egotistical impulses. Don't lord it over people. He says the most effective way to impress someone is to let him know that you are impressed by him.
This is the litmus test of genuine confidence. If you try to make someone else feel small, to make yourself look bigger, Giblin says you will instantly be perceived as a fool who doesn't know his way around.
Because true big shots, as he calls them, are natural, they're homey, they're easy to deal with.
Precisely because they don't need to compensate for anything. It's only the insecure person who feels the need to posture and preen.
This principle is so essential in conflict. He introduces the correction rule. Before you contradict someone, especially in a professional setting, you have to pause.
And you have to ask yourself, does it make any real difference whether he is right or wrong?
It's an ego check.
A powerful one. Unless safety's on the line or there's a massive financial error about to be made, why fight all the little battles? Winning a petty argument just to prove you're smarter is a huge failure in human relations.
There's that story about the accountant who refused to correct a client's minor misunderstanding of the tax brackets.
Because correcting him would only serve one purpose, to make him feel small. The ultimate goal wasn't to be intellectually victorious. It was to maintain the client's trust and goodwill. That was the real prize.
Okay, now we're moving into part 2, which is about controlling the interaction itself. This starts with chapter 4, how you can control the actions and attitudes of others. The core idea here is something called the mirror principle.
The mirror principle is absolutely fundamental to Giblin's whole philosophy of power. It suggests that you unconsciously control the behavior of the people you deal with because they reflect your own attitudes and expectations right back at you.
So if I walk into a meeting expecting a fight,
you set the stage for hostility, and you will receive it. We literally ask for the discourteous or negative behavior we get by the attitude we project first.
It sounds a little mystical, but Giblin bases it on hard research, like the Kenyon College and U.S. Navy study on voice tone.
That research was fascinating. It proved that a person cannot help but match the loudness of the speaker's voice. If the question was asked softly, the answer came back softly. If the question was loud, the answer was loud.
It's not a conscious choice.
No, it's an involuntary subconscious mirroring. Our bodies are constantly reacting to the emotional stage that's set by the person across from us.
Which gives us an incredibly practical tool for de-escalation. Controlling emotion. If a situation is getting tense, you can take control by deliberately lowering the tone of your voice and keeping it soft.
Right, because talking loudly contributes physically to the feeling of being angry. By forcing the other person to speak softly to match you, you physically inhibit their ability to escalate emotionally. You stop them from reaching peak rage.
So a soft answer really does turn away wrath.
It does, but it works on a physiological level by inhibiting the vocal cords. It's not magic, it's mechanics.
And that mirroring effect, it works in a positive way too. Giblin insists that enthusiasm and confidence are catching.
Yes, if you want other people to be enthusiastic about your idea, your product, whatever it is, you have to adopt that enthusiastic attitude yourself first. You radiate it.
He tells the story of Frank Bedker, the salesman,
who was failing, just completely failing, till he stopped trying to force enthusiasm onto his prospects and instead just concentrate on being genuinely enthusiastic himself about his product, about his own efforts.
He didn't try to make them catch it. He just focused on radiating it.
And his sales just skyrocketed. People caught it from him naturally. The same thing applies to confidence. You act confidently, and other people will have confidence in you.
The Conrad Hilton example is incredible here. Building his first $1 million hotel with less than $50,000 of his own capital.
Hilton always acted as if failure was just an impossible variable. It wasn't on the table. And that inspired others, investors, creditors, to align with him because his supreme confidence felt like a guarantee.
And Giblin notes that confidence is subtle. It's visible in these little behavioral clues.
A bold walk versus a timid shuffle. A firm but not crushing handshake. That firm grip suggests, I know who I am and I'm glad to meet you. It's a nonverbal signal of self-respect.
But the most profound control technique in this chapter is what he calls the miracle of imputed virtue.
This one is powerful. The only way to make people do better, he says, is not by criticizing them or shaming them, but by imputing the virtue to them.
This is Churchill's observation in practice.
It is. You don't tell someone they should be honest. You tell them you expect them to be honest because you already believe they have a reputation for it. You give them a fine reputation to live up to.
Like the banker, Robert J. Castile, who financed hundreds of college educations and loans to unemployed men.
With no collateral. He relied entirely on the expectation that they would live up to the trust he placed in them.
So if you want someone to be trustworthy, you start by treating them as if they already are. If you want them to be capable, you act as though their capability is a proven fact.
Exactly. You're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of success for the other person, which, ironically, is the most powerful way to control their actions for the better. The law enforcement officer who got the truth from a hardened hoodlum, by complimenting the hoodlum's reputation for honesty, proves it.
We bring out the side of the personality we expect to see.
Every single time.
Okay, Chapter 5 moves from controlling reactions to proactively shaping that first perception. How you can create a good impression on other people. He uses the analogy of a musician sounding a keynote.
It's a perfect analogy. The very first words, the very first action, they determine the tone of the entire interaction. If you start apologetically, "I'm so sorry to take up your time," or "I hate to bother you," you've immediately set a subordinate stage.
You've signaled that you are a bother, and the other person will treat you as one.
Of course they will. The rule is, know what you want and sound off accordingly. If you want a serious, respectful conversation about a business proposal, that tone must be set from the first second. You are the stage manager of the interaction.
And this ties directly back to your self-appraisal.
It does. Other people accept you at your own appraisal. If you walk and speak and act like a nobody, the world will take you at that devalued price. If you project confidence and self-respect, you receive respect in return.
But we need to be careful here about confusing that self-appraisal with arrogance. We already talked about how the truly confident person doesn't need to lord it over people.
Absolutely. The arrogant or rude person is the one who is desperately trying to hide their feelings of smallness. They're trying to prove they're bigger than they feel. They fail the impression test immediately because it's so transparent.
True big shots are natural and homey because they have nothing to prove.
Exactly. And to create a good impression, we also need to eliminate what Giblin calls the negative trap.
Which is?
Negative opinions create a negative atmosphere. They set a destructive keynote for the whole conversation. For example, never express resentment toward a past employer. Giblin says nobody hires a sorehead who clearly holds grudges.
And, crucially, don't knock the competition.
That's a huge one. It implies that you're afraid of them, which diminishes your own standing. And, maybe most importantly, it creates a negative no mood in the mind of your prospect. You're putting them in a critical, negative frame of mind.
So if we want a yes, we have to create a positive, affirmative atmosphere. And there are specific techniques for getting to yes.
There are. First, get the other person to say yes to a few preliminary, non-threatening questions. You're establishing a pattern of affirmation, a yes momentum.
Second, use implied questions.
Right. Like, this is a truly efficient system, isn't it? The "isn't it" primes the yes response. And third, physically nod affirmatively as you speak. Your own body language primes them for confirmation. You're basically engineering agreement before the main question is even asked.
And the final technique in this chapter is maybe the most advanced form of that imputed virtue idea. He calls it the power of assumption.
Yes. Dr. Albert Edward Wiggum called the calm assumption that the other person is going to do what you want hardly anything stronger in suggestion. You don't ask if they can do it. You proceed as if their cooperation is a foregone conclusion.
So you're removing the option of resistance from the conversation.
You are. Dr. Pierce B. Brooks's incredible success in both industrial safety and fundraising was based entirely on this calm assumption of cooperation. He just trusted his team and acted like success was inevitable.
The listener needs to really internalize this. Stop using language that anticipates failure or argument. If you speak as if you expect trouble, you're using the mirror principle against yourself.
Assume cooperation. It's a game changer.
Okay, so if the last chapter was about making a good first impression, Chapter 6 is about magnetic attraction, making people naturally want to be around you. Giblin introduces the AAA formula for attracting people.
The AAA formula. It's based on 3 basic human hungers that, when you feed them, they draw people to you like a magnet.
The first A is acceptance.
The hunger to be accepted as we are, faults and all. We all crave someone we can relax with, someone we can metaphorically take our shoes off with, without the constant fear of criticism or judgment.
And this is a really crucial distinction from approval, isn't it? Acceptance is unconditional.
It is. It's the unconditional recognition of someone's fundamental worth, even if you disagree with their choices or behaviors. The critical, fault-finding person repels others because they insist you fit into their moral straitjacket to earn their acceptance.
And Giblin argues that trying to bargain for acceptance, saying, you must change before I'll approve of you, it actually reduces your influence.
It completely undermines it. Acceptance is the prerequisite for change. The wife who accepts her wild husband without nagging gives him the necessary self-confidence to want to change himself. Constant criticism just adds to his self-doubt and makes him defiant.
So acceptance gives them the security to improve on their own terms.
Yes. The second A is approval. This goes a step further than just acceptance. This is about actively finding something positive to like. You focus on what you can approve of, and you cultivate a positive personality that draws the good out of other people.
But how do we avoid this just being simple flattery? If I approve of everything, my approval becomes worthless.
A great point, and that's where the technique comes in. You should compliment people on virtues that are not glaringly obvious, or on things they don't usually get praised for.
Like what?
Like praising the successful stockbroker on his incredible grilling skills at a barbecue, or his taste in art, not on his stock-picking ability, which he hears about all day. That unexpected compliment confirms that you see him as a whole, three-dimensional person. It's intensely gratifying.
We saw this with the story of the incorrigible boy. His carving skill was approved of.
And that one piece of genuine praise gave him a goal to seek more approval, which then led him to improve other totally unrelated behaviors, like cleaning his room.
And the third A is appreciation.
To raise in value. We instinctively seek out people who raise our value rather than depreciate it. This is about actively showing gratitude and respect.
So this means practical demonstrations, like not keeping people waiting.
Exactly. Or thanking them sincerely. And treating people as special. This was Giblin's fourth point under this. Avoid the routine treatment. We all hate being treated like one of the mob.
We want to be singled out.
We do, which means talking person to person, not station to station. When you introduce a teenager, don't just wave them off as the children. Acknowledge them as Dick, an individual. Shake their hand, ask them a question. That confirms their personal worth instantly.
So the magnetic pull comes from supplying this AAA nectar: acceptance, approval, and appreciation. You create an emotional environment where people feel safe, seen, and valued, and they just naturally want to stick around.
It's an emotional oasis.
Our final dive for today is into Chapter 7. How to make the other fellow feel friendly instantly. This is the secret of that person who can walk into a room full of strangers and instantly connect with everyone.
The person who never met a stranger. Their secret is that they assume the attitude they expected the other person to take. They walk in believing the other person is friendly, they act accordingly, and the mere principle ensures that friendliness is returned to them.
And this principle is the antidote to our own fear of rejection.
That's what holds most of us back. That fear makes us defensive, rigid, and it ultimately drives people away. We have to take the initiative. Giblin says, take a chance, he's friendly.
And the odds are in your favor.
Overwhelmingly in your favor. He estimates it's 99 wins for every 1 loss. If your internal attitude is one of generalized friendliness and an expectation of cooperation, your experience will prove that to be your reality. The biggest barrier is just our own anxiety.
But he warns us to avoid the eager beaver trap.
Yes. If you are overly anxious or, as he puts it, drooling to get what you want, that signals desperation and low confidence.
And the other person picks up on that immediately.
Subconsciously, yes. They sense that something is desperately needed from them, and their natural response is to balk, to become suspicious, or to retreat. The trick is to relax and take it for granted that you'll be liked and that the outcome is secured.
The confident person is relaxed. The anxious person is tense.
That's the core of it. And the single most effective tool for projecting that relaxed confidence and that assumption of friendliness is the magic of a sincere smile.
A genuine smile, he says, is a magic switch.
It is. It turns on friendly feelings instantly because it communicates 3 profound messages all at once. First, I like you. Second, I assume you're going to like me. And third, maybe most powerfully, you are worth smiling at, which confers individual status and importance.
And Giblin is extremely clear on this. The smile cannot be a superficial gimmick. It has to come from the heart. Or, as he says, way down deep.
Yes. He suggests practicing with what he calls mirror magic. You stand in front of a mirror, think of pleasant things, and you let the feeling break out over your face. You're not forcing it.
And he brings up that idea that our actions determine our feelings.
The feedback loop. Going through the physical motions of a genuine smile actually helps you feel more friendly and optimistic, which then makes the smile even more sincere.
So the smile becomes your nonverbal key. It unlocks instant friendly feelings, it multiplies the power of a compliment, it helps you secure favors, and it can even take the sting out of plain talk when you have to have a tough conversation.
It's the ultimate confidence signal because it shows everyone that you expect success and friendliness before a single word is even spoken. So we've established that confidence and power, according to Giblin, they're not attained through complex tactics or some kind of, manipulation.
No, it's through the consistent practice of understanding and satisfying human nature's deepest, most consistent drive.
The insatiable ego hunger. By shifting our focus entirely from our own needs to proactively supplying that food, the recognition, the acceptance, the approval, and the appreciation, we fundamentally change the reality that's reflected back at us through the mirror principle.
Giblin makes a really strong case that the 85% of success that's based on human relations is entirely within our control. It just relies on those hidden assets we already possess and the attitude we choose to project.
Right. Giblin teaches us that we largely control the attitudes that are reflected back to us. So if our success is 85% dependent on our relationships and our confident attitude is instantly reflected back to us, consider this. How much of the reality you experience today, positive or negative, is simply the inevitable consequence of the expectations and the self-appraisal you walked in with this morning?
Thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe, follow up the next topic. Welcome to Bold Revolution. Today we are diving into a summary of a truly foundational book, How to Have Confidence and Power in Dealing with People by LesGiblin.
It's a real classic.
Absolutely. And I want you to think about this for a second. Have you ever felt, insecure when you're talking to people?
I think pretty much everyone has at some point, right?
Right. So imagine how much easier things would be if you could transform that feeling. Become more charismatic, more influential, really just more successful in life.
And that's exactly the promise here. LesGiblin's book is basically the key to making that happen, and today we're going to pull it apart, really summarize the core ideas so you can start putting them to use, right away.
The thing that really stands out to me is that this isn't about, quick fixes or surface-level tricks. You're looking for the foundational principles here.
That's it, exactly. The real power of this book, and the reason it's lasted so long, is that Giblin just refuses to get into abstract philosophy. He is intensely focused on the working knowledge of human nature.
What do you mean by working knowledge?
I mean, how people actually behave, not how some theorist in an ivory tower wishes they would behave. This is all about practical, actionable insights.
And that distinction, pragmatic versus philosophical, that's so critical. When we talk about confidence and power here, we're not talking about manipulation.
No, not at all. Or like adopting some fake persona.
Exactly. We're talking about mastering a skill set that's rooted in the fundamental psychological needs of every single person you interact with. And when you do that, it naturally follows.
Absolutely. And to even begin to gain that influence, you have to recognize that human relations are, at their core, transactional. Giblin clarifies the playing field right away by outlining 3 basic methods people use to try and get what they want from others.
Okay, so 3 methods.
And only one of them is actually effective for any kind of long-term success.
Okay, let's unpack this. We're all trying to move through the world and, secure resources, get cooperation, find happiness. So what are the 2 methods that just inevitably fail?
So the first one, the first failed method, is force. Threats. Intimidation.
The bully's method.
Exactly. The method of the bully, the criminal, or even, in a more subtle business context, the person who tries to outsmart or steamroll everyone else. Their goal is just to take what they want without offering any kind of fair exchange.
That's the definition of a short game, isn't it? I mean, you might win compliance right in that moment, but you've just sacrificed any chance of cooperation or loyalty or goodwill down the line.
Definitely. You haven't won the person over, you just subdued them for a minute.
Temporarily.
Precisely. The second failed method is the polar opposite. It's begging or submission.
So the doormat approach?
Yeah, it's the approach of the timid, submissive personality who's trying to negotiate this passive deal, right? I promise I won't assert myself or cause any trouble. Just please be nice to me and give me what I need.
And why does that fail just as badly as force?
Because no one respects or truly wants to help a beggar. It costs the other person nothing to just ignore you or dismiss you, and it actually requires energy from them to uplift someone who refuses to assert their own worth.
You've put them in a dominant position without giving them any real reason to engage with you.
Which brings us to Giblin's entire focus, the foundation of real confidence and power. It's the method of fair exchange, give and take.
So we're looking for strategies to give other people the things they fundamentally want and need. We're talking psychological sustenance here.
And in return, they will gladly and willingly give us the success, the cooperation, and the happiness that we desire. The entire mission of this deep dive is to show you how successful human relations aren't about sacrificing your own desires.
Right.
It's about getting what you want from the other fellow and making the other fellow happy about it.
Okay, so the first claim Giblin makes is pretty audacious. It can be shocking, especially for people who are highly technically skilled. He says that people skills are roughly 85% of the success equation.
85%, regardless of your profession.
So why? Why is this ability to deal with others the universal factor in human success?
Well, because if you strip away all the job titles, all the technical skills, the degrees, the one common denominator to all success and happiness is simply other people.
You can't do anything in a vacuum.
You can't. You can't build a business, raise a family, get a promotion. None of it happens alone. Your life, your resources, your emotional well-being, everything is mediated through human interaction.
And the data he draws on, I mean, even decades ago, it's just so compelling. It really forces you to reevaluate what we should be prioritizing. Let's start with that Carnegie Institute study.
The Carnegie one is a big one. It's the one everyone quotes. They analyzed thousands of professional records across all sorts of different industries, and their conclusion was, well, it was definitive.
A mere 15% of professional success.
Just 15% comes from your technical knowledge, your brains or your skill on the job.
Which leaves a staggering 85%.
85%. Dedicated entirely to personality factors, to your ability to understand and deal with people successfully.
That number just completely flips the typical emphasis we place on technical training. It means if you're preparing for a meeting, your technical prep might only influence 15% of the outcome.
While your social readiness dictates the rest. And if you look at failure, the numbers get even more dramatic.
This is the Dr. Albert Edward Wigham's study, right?
Yes, he reported on this massive study that tracked 4,000 job losses in a single year. Get this, 90% of those job losses were directly attributed to a failure in dealing with people.
90%.
90. Only 10% were because someone couldn't actually do the technical work. Think about that for a second. Even if you are technically brilliant, if you're socially inept, your risk of failure is 9 times higher.
And that just shows you why technical knowledge by itself is never enough. We see this play out all the time. Giblin gives that really powerful example of the engineering graduates from Purdue University.
Yes, the Purdue study. So they tracked these engineering grads over 5 years, and they were expecting, the highest grades to correlate directly with the highest income. That makes sense, right?
It seems logical.
And, well, high technical marks did correlate with higher earnings, but the difference was negligible, sometimes just a couple $100s a year. The technical skill was just the baseline, the entry ticket.
So where did the massive income jump come from?
The human engineering skills, the engineering graduates who showed marked social ability, the ability to deal with people, they averaged 15% more in earnings than the group with the highest grades.
15% more.
And a monumental 33% more than those with low personality ratings. The market was clearly rewarding social fluency over pure mathematical aptitude.
And this is where Giblin connects all those generalized personality problems directly to failures in human relations. He argues that things like shyness, timidity, self-consciousness.
Feeling inferior.
Right. Those aren't just character flaws. They're fundamentally a failure to master the art of dealing with other people successfully.
They're defensive shells. Shyness, for example, is just a person retreating because they haven't learned how to engage and win cooperation or approval. They're failing to communicate their own worth effectively.
And on the other end of the spectrum, you have the bossy or dominating personality.
Equally destructive. That's the person who tries to force their will. And they're failing just as badly, maybe even more dramatically.
Because you can't force what you really want.
Absolutely not. They're trying to coerce the very things they crave most. Cooperation, loyalty, approval. You cannot force affection or genuine respect. The core failure of both the timid person and the tyrant is exactly the same.
They're failing to satisfy the psychological needs of the person sitting across from them.
And this connects so well to that observation from Bernard Overstreet, who noted that pretty much all disruptive emotional problems, they root themselves in our relations with other people.
The loss a human being just cannot tolerate and stay emotionally healthy is the loss of goodwill from other humans.
It speaks to our deep inherent dependency. We're social animals.
Right.
And in modern life, as Giblin points out, the old horse and buggy methods just fail completely.
What he means by that is that the world has shrunk and life has become incredibly specialized. Davy Crockett could survive in the wilderness based entirely on his own skill.
A shooting eye, a sense of direction.
Exactly. Modern life is nothing like that. We are hyper-dependent. If you want a grade A steak or a comfortable apartment or safe transportation or even just for the lights to come on.
You are utterly dependent on thousands of specialized human interactions. We simply cannot achieve success or happiness without mastering this field of what he calls human engineering. You have to know what people want, why they act the way they do, and how to create a win-win exchange.
Okay, so if human engineering is the core skill for that 85% of success, then the next step is understanding the single deepest human hunger.
The hunger for self-esteem. This is it. This is Giblin's basic secret, the blueprint for influence.
And he frames this secret right away with the most severe warning in the entire book. He calls it the unforgivable sin. What is that sin, and why is it so catastrophic?
The unforgivable sin is this. Never, ever trample on another person's ego or detract from their dignity. And it's catastrophic because the ego is the seed of a person's identity and their worth. If you threaten that, you activate this primal defensive response that just overrides logic, reason, cooperation, everything.
The anecdotes he uses to illustrate this they're extreme, but they really underline how desperate people are to defend their perceived worth. Tell us about the man who committed an act of violence just because a woman fell asleep while he was speaking.
It's a terrifying illustration. This man was talking probably about himself or something important to him, and the woman fell asleep. He became so instantly enraged by this implied rejection of his significance.
It's a blow to his ego.
The message was, "You are so unimportant, I cannot even stay awake for you." And that was enough for him to strangle her.
That wasn't an act of passion or for material gain. It was purely an act to defend his self-image. It's an extreme version of the same impulse that drives a teenage boy to violence.
Precisely. Giblin tells that story of the 17-year-old boy who was constantly ridiculed by other boys. They kept mocking him, questioning his masculinity. And to prove he was a man, he robbed a service station at gunpoint.
It's unbelievable.
People will commit destructive, life-altering acts just to defend the idea of their own worth when it's aggressively attacked. You can steal a man's money and he might forgive you, but if you attack his dignity, you have made a lifelong, irrational enemy.
So if the ego is this fragile and this necessary, we just have to accept its function. Giblin lays out 4 fundamental facts about human egotism that he says we have to imprint on our minds.
They're just unavoidable truths. Number 1, we are all egotists. This is natural. It's the drive to maintain our individuality.
Yeah, okay.
2, we're all more interested in ourselves than anything else in the world. Again, this isn't selfishness, it's just self-preservation. 3, everyone wants to feel important and amount to something. This is that deep hunger for significance. And 4, everyone craves the approval of others so that he can approve of himself. We need that external validation to confirm our internal self-worth.
And once we accept that we are all, ego hungry, we can finally address that common misconception about conceit. We often assume a show-off or a braggart has too much self-esteem.
And that's exactly backwards. Clinical psychology totally backs Giblin up here. The self-centered, defensive, egotistical person suffers from too little self-esteem.
So they're suffering from an internal deficiency.
Exactly. And they're trying to compensate or raise their own importance by beating others down or seeking excessive attention.
Which gives us that perfect shorthand for understanding conflict, LSMFT.
Low self-esteem means friction and trouble. When a person's self-esteem is high, when they feel secure and valued, they can take slights in stride. Think of General Pershing. He was unbothered when a private once yelled at him because his internal self-worth was unshakable.
But when self-esteem is low,
any little thing, an innocent remark, a critical look, being kept waiting, it can feel like a profound personal catastrophe. The bully, the gossip, the chronic complainer, they're all just trying desperately to prove they're bigger than they feel on the inside.
And understanding that their aggression is rooted in insecurity, not superiority, that completely changes how you interact with them.
It gives you power.
Yeah.
Because once you understand this mechanism, you know that when logic fails, you must appeal to the ego. The famous story of General Oglethorpe winning permission for the colony of Georgia, it demonstrates the absolute dominance of the ego over reason.
So Oglethorpe, who founded the colony, he tried for weeks to convince the King of England to approve the whole venture. He used every rational argument in the book.
The humanitarian reasons for the colonists, the strategic importance of the land, the economic benefits for the crown.
And the king was just bored, unmoved.
His logic was totally sound, but the king's internal hunger was being completely ignored. So Oglethorpe pivoted. He adopted this masterful psychological strategy. He didn't change the substance of the proposal at all, only the framing. He suggested they name the new colony Georgia after the king.
And what was the king's reaction to that simple act of recognition?
The king suddenly sat up. He was focused. He took deep personal notice. The argument shifted instantly from some abstract political venture to a permanent monument to his personal significance.
And he not only granted permission,
He ended up funding the entire colonization effort. Logic lost. The appeal to the ego won the day, hands down.
that is just the essential takeaway for everyone, isn't it? Whether you're dealing with a world leader or a colleague at work, if you give the other person a personal ego-enhancing reason to help you, they will move mountains.
Like the desk clerk who was too busy, but then suddenly found a miracle room because the host appealed to his pride, saying, "I know that if there's any hotel man in town who can lick this problem, it's you." It moves the task from a chore to a personal challenge, a chance for recognition.
And this is why Giblin entitles Chapter 3, How to Cash In on Your Hidden Assets. You already possess this great, universally desired wealth.
The power to add to another person's feeling of personal worth.
That wealth is recognition. It costs nothing to give away, yet it is universally desired and desperately needed. Giblin defines courtesy and politeness not as these frivolous social conventions,
But as functional ways of acknowledging the other person's importance. And the withdrawal of that recognition is just devastating. Think about that foreign premier who simply left his appointment after being kept waiting for 5 minutes.
He wasn't reacting to the 5 minutes themselves.
No, not at all. He was reacting to the message that the delay signaled, which was, "I do not place much value on seeing you." That subtle blow to his dignity was enough to sabotage months of diplomatic effort.
We see this play out in the workplace constantly. That J.C. Style survey of worker unrest, it makes it so clear. The major causes of dissatisfaction are all failures to recognize people.
Failure to give credit, failure to encourage, criticizing publicly, failure to ask for opinions, all of them are failures to recognize the personal importance and contribution of the employee.
This is why giving individual attention works miracles. Subconsciously, we only really notice what's important to us. So when someone notices you, your unique contribution, your name, your effort, it says, I recognize your importance.
And that morale boost, it drives cooperation and loyalty in a way that money alone just can't.
The Harvard manufacturing turnover example illustrates this perfectly. They had this massive labor turnover problem with new employees. And what solved it? It wasn't higher pay or better technical training.
He was providing individualized attention. They started introducing them to a buddy, explaining how their specific job fit into the bigger picture, and just making them feel important right from day one.
And labor turnover dropped to almost zero.
Because their need for personal worth was finally being met. If you want influence, you have to genuinely believe other people are important and then act accordingly. It has to be authentic, because the moment it feels like flattery or manipulation, it becomes worthless. The goal is to supply the psychological food they crave.
So we've established that the ego is what drives behavior. Now, how do we actively control the mood and the direction of any interaction? Giblin introduces what he calls the law of psychological reflection. We can call it the mirror principle.
The law is so simple, yet it's profoundly powerful. You control the actions and attitudes of others by adopting the attitude and action you want them to express.
So we're mirrors for each other.
Exactly. If you approach someone expecting hostility, you approach defensively, which then makes them defensive, and they reflect that hostility right back at you. You've just created the very reality you were afraid of.
It's the old adage, what goes around comes around, but applied to emotional tone. And the science Giblin draws on, especially about the voice, it proves how involuntary this mirroring is.
Oh yeah, the U.S. Navy and Kenyon College study. It demonstrated that people involuntarily matched the loudness of a speaker's voice. If the question was posed softly, the answer was soft. if the question was loud.
The answer was loud. We instinctively regulate our tone to match the stage that's been set for us.
Which gives us the ultimate secret to controlling high-conflict situations. You cannot get angry if you keep your voice soft.
That's the strategic application.
Right. By deliberately lowering your voice in an explosive situation, you essentially force the other person to modulate theirs. You prevent their emotion from escalating, you control their volume, and therefore you control their emotional temperature before the whole thing can spiral out of control.
And this principle applies to positive traits, too. If you want enthusiasm, you have to project enthusiasm.
Enthusiasm is highly contagious. Frank Becker, the famous salesman, he completely turned his career around. Not by learning new technical tricks, but by focusing all his energy on becoming genuinely enthusiastic about his product and his interactions.
And that positive energy just transferred directly to his prospects,
leading to massive success. You have to be sold on your idea first. Otherwise, no one else is going to be.
Confidence breeds confidence. Acting confidently makes others believe in your ability.
Think about Napoleon. When he was confronted by an army sent to capture him, he didn't run or hide. He just walked toward them, acting with this supreme, natural confidence that the soldiers, instead of arresting him,
they just turned around and followed him.
They turned around and marched back behind him. They projected confidence onto him because he projected it first.
We see this in business, too. Conrad Hilton managed to get funding for his first big hotel with barely any of his own capital. How?
He projected absolute invincibility. When people asked where the money would come from, he'd tap his head and say it would come from in here. This calm, confident assumption, this projection of success, it inspired investors to believe that failure just wasn't an option for him, despite the financial facts on the ground.
So whether it's Hilton, Henry Ford, or John D. Rockefeller,
their ability to project certainty in their success secured the confidence they needed from the outside world.
And beyond these conscious actions, Giblin reminds us that the little things give you away. Our subconscious signals are so powerful.
Exactly. Our nonverbal communication is always setting the keynote. A slumped walk signals despair, burdens, low vitality. A confident step signals a bold, goal-oriented person.
The handshake is a massive indicator.
A huge one. A limp dish rag handshake signals low self-confidence. The bone crusher is overcompensating for insecurity. Only the firm, not crushing, handshake signals genuine self-confidence and self-regard. Your tone of voice, too, has to express courage, not whining or mumbling.
Okay, now let's explore the most powerful application of this mirror principle, the concept of imputing virtue. How do we make people do better by expecting them to?
Winston Churchill summed it up perfectly. He said, the best way to get another to acquire a virtue is to impute it to him. You let the other person know that you think they already possess the virtue you want them to display.
And they'll invariably live up to that expectation.
They will. You trust them first, and they become trustworthy.
That is such a radical shift from the traditional model of management, which relies on criticism or micromanagement. How did that banker, Robert J. Castile, apply this?
Castile made hundreds of loans over 15 years to people with zero collateral. Students, unemployed men. And he did not lose a single penny. His secret was that he let them know he had absolute unwavering faith in them to repay.
So he imputed the virtue of responsibility and financial integrity.
And they proved him right. They felt the weight of that expectation and they rose to meet it.
We see this powerful mechanism at work in law enforcement, too, with officers getting information from tough guys by appealing to their reputation.
Yeah, the officer says something like, people tell me you won't lie, that's why I'm here. And the subject is suddenly in this psychological bind. He's been assigned the role of a truthful, respected individual. To lie now would require him to discard that self-image that was just given to him.
It's just easier to tell the truth and retain the assigned virtue.
Much easier. And maybe the most surprising example is Herbert Hoover during price regulation, dealing with a known price violator.
What did he do?
Hoover appointed the violator as the compliance chairman for his district. By imputing the virtue of leadership and compliance to the very merchant who had been breaking the rules, the merchant was compelled to act as if that role were true. We live up or down to the roles we're assigned, especially when the role enhances our sense of self-worth.
This leads directly into creating a good first impression. Giblin calls this setting the keynote for the whole interaction.
The first words and actions you use, they determine the mood and the expectation for everything that follows. Just like the first notes of a musical composition. A salesman who starts with, "I hate to bother you,"
has instantly set this apologetic, weak keynote.
And confirmed to the customer that they are being bothered. You have to control that opening signal.
This ties right back to self-valuation, doesn't it? The world accepts you at your own valuation.
Exactly. Emerson said that the world leaves it to every man to set his own rate. If you act like a nervous, apologetic nobody, you'll be treated like one. Conversely, Giblin warns against the opposite extreme, the arrogant, pushy, big shot act.
Because that extreme behavior actually signals insecurity.
It signals to the subconscious mind that you feel deeply small and insignificant, and you have to compensate.
Yeah.
Truly powerful, big people are natural. They're relaxed. They're homey.
It's also so crucial to eliminate negative talk from that initial impression. Giblin is emphatic that negative talk and criticism of others or your competition just creates a negative atmosphere around you.
People judge you by the value you place on others. Walter Lowen, the job counselor, he advised applicants to never express resentment against a former employer because nobody wants to hire a sorehead.
Right. If you spend your time knocking your competition, you just look fearful.
And you inject negativity into the conversation, which makes a yes answer much harder to get.
Which leads us to the technique of putting the other person into a yes mood. This was popularized by Harry Overstreet.
Right. You ask a series of preliminary questions that are guaranteed to get agreement. You get the other person into the mental habit of saying yes before you ever introduce your main proposal.
And there's a physical component to this, too.
A really powerful one. You physically nod affirmatively as you ask these small questions. Actions influence others, and you're subconsciously encouraging them to agree with you.
And the most sophisticated form of suggestion is the calm assumption that the other person will do what you want. This is Dr. Brooks' technique.
Stop questioning their willingness. Just assume their compliance. Stop asking children if they want to go to bed nicely. Just assume they will and lead them there.
The editor of the Christian Science Monitor never had no smoking signs in his office.
But because nobody ever has smoked here, chain-smoking reporters never dared to light up.
Ooh.
The highest form of influence is simply proceeding as though the outcome is already agreed upon.
Okay, so we've moved from controlling behavior to now supplying the core human hungers that naturally attract people to you. You can't force affection, but you can become magnetic by providing what Giblin calls the AAA formula.
Right. The 3 basic psychological foods we have to constantly supply.
And the AAA stands for?
Acceptance, approval, and appreciation.
Okay, let's start with acceptance.
Acceptance is the vitamin. We all hunger to be accepted as we are, without needing to perform or defend ourselves or change ourselves instantly. It's about providing a space where the person can just relax and drop their defensive guard.
And this isn't about lowering your ideals or endorsing their bad habits?
Not at all.
Yeah.
It's affirming the person, regardless of their current state. And this leads to that great paradox. Accepting people as they are gives them the power to change themselves.
How does that work?
Well, the spouse who's constantly nagging and diminishing their partner's self-esteem actually makes the partner more irritable and more resistant to change. But the spouse who provides a shot of self-confidence in the arm through acceptance allows the partner to feel secure enough to recognize and address their own flaws. Psychoanalysts, marriage vows, lasting friendships, they're all built on this principle of acceptance.
Okay, so the second A is approval, which goes beyond just acceptance.
Approval means actively finding and highlighting positive traits. Negative personalities, they're always drawn to pointing out what's wrong with people or situations. Positive personalities are magnets because they actively seek out and spotlight what's right. People naturally gravitate toward those who make them bask in the sunlight of their own positive qualities.
So this requires actively searching for something to praise that might not be obvious.
That's the key rule. The child psychologist who worked with the so-called incorrigible boy, he found approval not in the boy's schoolwork, which was failing, but in his talent for carving.
By praising that specific, non-glaring talent.
The boy received the approval he craved, and his behavior improved because he sought more traits to draw that positive attention. Praise the stockbroker for his exceptional skill at cooking, not his obvious market genius. It makes the praise feel personal and earned.
And the third A is appreciation.
The word itself means to raise in value, the opposite of depreciate. You have to let people know you value them highly, that you see their time and effort as precious. This includes small courtesies, like never keeping them waiting, always remembering to say thank you genuinely, and treating them as special.
Special. That's the critical component. Giblin warns against the routine treatment.
You have to avoid talking station to station, seeing people as generic categories like customers or employees. You must talk person to person. Everyone desperately wants to be singled out and recognized for their individuality, not treated as just one of the mob.
That's why a personalized letter or a clerk remembering your name works so powerfully.
It confirms, "I see you."
So the AAA formula is, in essence, the emotional currency of fair exchange. You don't coerce the person. You provide the food they need, and they naturally flock to you to get it.
And building on that attraction, the next step is how to make the other person feel friendly instantly. How to become one of those people who never met a stranger.
The secret is the assumed attitude. You have to consciously believe the other person is going to like you, and then act accordingly. The person who fears rejection projects nervousness, hostility, or defensiveness.
And that negative attitude is just reflected right back, confirming their fear. You have to take the initiative. The odds are heavily in your favor because most people are desperate for friendship or connection. If someone appears unfriendly, Giblin argues, it's usually because they're afraid you will reject them.
So they're already in a defensive posture.
Right, and by projecting a warm, positive assumption, you disarm their defenses instantly.
But there is a counterintuitive trap here, the eager beaver. You shouldn't try too hard to be charming.
That excessive anxiety, that eagerness to please, it suggests a lack of self-faith, and it makes the other person suspicious. Why are they trying so hard? What do they want? You should relax and just take it for granted that you'll be liked, projecting a calm confidence instead of manic anxiety.
And nothing embodies that calm confidence and positive assumption better than a genuine smile. This is Giblin's magic switch.
A real sincere smile is maybe the most powerful free asset we possess. It performs 3 critical functions instantly. It says, "I like you." It says, "I assume you're going to like me." And most critically, you're worth smiling at, which differentiates them and gives them individual status and recognition.
But the key is that the smile has to come from the heart, not just the lips. Giblin endorses practicing mirror magic daily.
Right. Consciously conjuring up good, friendly feelings and letting the smile break out spontaneously. This relies on the observation from William James and Charles Darwin. Your actions determine your feelings just as much as your feelings determine your actions.
So the very act of forcing the right smile muscles helps you feel more friendly.
And more optimistic and welcoming. You don't wait to feel friendly to smile. You smile to feel friendly.
The story of the secretary on the dismal shopping day is the ultimate proof of this magic switch.
It was a crowded, horrible, depressing shopping day, and she had 5 transactions to complete. Instead of resigning herself to chaos, she decided to use her $1,000,000 asset. She deliberately gave a big, genuine smile to every single sales clerk she encountered.
And the result?
She cut through the frustration, got the best service instantly, and completed all 5 transactions in less than 30 minutes. Her smile secured favors and multiplied compliments instantly because it affirmed the worth of every person she met.
You just can't buy a product or service that provides that kind of influence. If you use your genuine smile, it makes a stranger feel like they've known you all their life.
And it's the fastest path to fulfilling that AAA formula in any first interaction.
This has been a really intensive deep dive into LesGiblin's foundational framework. It's just so clear that this entire system is built on psychological truth, not on gimmicks.
To summarize the core findings, first, you have to remember the fundamental law. Your success and happiness are overwhelmingly dependent on your people skills, dominating technical ability by that huge 85% margin.
And the foundational key to all of it is appealing to and satisfying the human ego. You must never commit the unforgivable sin of trampling on someone's dignity.
Second, the tools for mastery are surprisingly pragmatic. Control the actions of others through the mirror principle by consciously projecting confidence and enthusiasm, not apology or hostility. Always sound the right keynote when you begin an interaction.
And remember the power of imputing the virtue you want to see in someone.
And finally, proactively attract people using the AAA formula. Acceptance, approval, and appreciation. Provide this universal food, and people will naturally gravitate toward you. And deploy the magic switch of the genuine assumed attitude and the sincere smile to build instant friendliness and just dissolve tension.
Giblin's ultimate lesson is that true self-improvement and power isn't about sacrificing your own desires or becoming a doormat. It's about mastering the art of getting what you want from the other fellow and making the other fellow happy about it.
Because you satisfied their deepest human needs in the process. That is the definition of mutual benefit and genuine human engineering.
We've covered the principles. Now comes the challenge.
The real power is in the application. So the challenge for you, listening right now, is where are you going to use this? Not tomorrow, not next week, today. Think of one immediate, specific place. A difficult client, a family discussion, a social setting, where you can consciously apply the AAA formula or the assume success technique. Don't let this knowledge just stay theoretical.
Exactly. Put these principles to work. So thank you for joining us for this deep dive. And if you found this useful, well, you know what to do. Liking, sharing, subscribing, it all helps us bring more of these conversations to you.
And we'll be back soon to follow up with our next topic.